what I'll do is I'm going to talk for about 15 to 20 minutes just on the basic kind of what, why, and how of summer research programs and how to apply. I'll go through an application timeline, and I'll also demonstrate how to search for programs on our website. And then I'll pass it over to two guest speakers to give you some more tips and personal stories about summer research. What you see in front of you is called a concept map. And we'll send you a link to this map and the other materials that we present at the webinar today. What I want you to know about it is that each of these concepts, the shapes that are concepts, have attached resources to them. So just for example, if you click on this little icon that looks like a little book, you'll come up with some of the handouts that are attached to the concept. So as you go through a concept map, that's something to explore, is all the attached resources. So there are, you know, for example, three handouts attached to this concept. So this is a good resource to have in general as you're exploring summer research programs. But I'm going to start out just kind of with the basics of what is summer research. And so usually these programs are about 8 to 10 weeks, of course, in the summer. And most of the time they're located at a college or university campus, but they can also be at a like private research lab or federal research lab setting as well. And it's very possible that your home institution hosts one or several summer research programs. Usually you're working under the guidance of a faculty member on a research project. You'll probably also be interacting with graduate students. And usually the programs are pretty small. They usually consist of about 8 to 12 undergraduate students total. And all the programs that we'll talk about today, they are paid, and usually they will offer some sort of travel support to get to the program, and usually housing is provided. And the programs span just about every discipline and every geographic location that you can possibly imagine. There are a lot of programs out there. And they're definitely fun. Here are just a few pictures of a program in atmospheric sciences, sort of getting out in the field. Most of these programs will provide you both field work and lab work experience. And just as an example, page through a few pictures of different programs. This one is in chemistry, again, atmospheric science, marine sciences. So lots of opportunities to get some field work and lab work experience that you may not be able to get in a regular kind of course, undergraduate course setting during the academic year. Programs often provide professional development support. So some of that might be, you might receive a little bit of funding to travel to a conference with your other program participants at the end of the program and present your research at in a poster or a oral presentation. Or the program might provide workshops on GRE prep or resume writing or grad school, that kind of thing. And then, as I mentioned, all the programs that we're talking about today are paid. Usually the stipend is somewhere around $3,000 to $4,000 for the sort of 8 to 10 week summer period. Two major kind of places to start looking for summer research. One is the National Science Foundation, NSF for short, and they call their programs REUs. REU stands for Research Experience for Undergraduates. There are somewhere around 500 to 600 funded REUs through the National Science Foundation, again, in a variety of science and technology, engineering, and math disciplines. Again, they're fully paid. They provide travel support and housing. The housing is usually in a dormitory type setting or other kind of shared housing situation. Each program will have a different application process and different application form and different application deadlines. But typically the deadlines are coming right up. Typically they are January, February, and maybe early March. Early March would be on the late side for REU deadlines. And I'll show you how to search for these on our website in a little bit. Attached to each of these concepts are both at NASA research experiences and NSF research experiences are some video links. And the other thing that you can do is you can go onto YouTube and just kind of search RU, and maybe RU in a discipline you're interested in, like RU biology. And you can come up with some nice videos put together by former, participants, and it really gives you a good sense for what the programs are like, what it's like to enter into them, what kind of research students are doing, what kind of activities they're engaged in. So it's a good way to kind of get a feel for these programs. Another place to look for summer research is NASA. And, a lot of people think that NASA is like aerospace engineering and nothing else. But NASA actually has several hundred internships available each summer. And the disciplines are quite broad. So chemistry, biology, physics, of course, many types of engineering, even some internships that span kind of business and finance. So it's another place to look, again, a paid internship. They're a little bit different in that they happen strictly at one of NASA's research centers. And they pair you up with a NASA scientist who acts as your mentor and assists you in completing a research project. NASA is also a little bit different in that they also provide semester internships, so fall semester internships and spring semester internships. So if you have that flexibility in your academic, calendar where you're trying to fill a semester or you have a light course load and live near a NASA center, that would be an option for you as well. And there are lots and lots of other places to look for internships. All the federal agencies offer them to some degree, as well as, some private labs and that sort of thing. So again, I'll give a little tour of our website to help you get started in searching for programs. But before we do that, I guess, let's just address the question of why should you apply? Why should you even be kind of looking for summer research? Well, one thing is that summer research gives you a great academic foundation. It really helps you build your research skills and gives you exposure to things like field work, lab work, instruments that you just might not have the opportunity to work with during the academic year. Research experiences are also a great stepping stone to graduate school. Not only are you building some good research skills that are necessary for graduate school, but also you're working alongside graduate students. It kind of gives you insight into what life is like as a graduate student. And it really strengthens your graduate application to have a summer research experience or two on your resume. These programs often also give you really valuable faculty connections. You have an opportunity to work pretty closely with a couple of faculty members through the program, which is something that may be difficult to do during the academic year if you're at a large university, with large courses. So a lot of students say that they found their future, graduate advisor through a summer research program, or they found a graduate program that they were interested in through their summer research program. Of course, these programs give you a lot of hands-on experience, and they also help you explore fields of interest. So you may discover that you really love this certain research niche that you didn't even know about before you entered into a summer research program. Or conversely, you might go into a program thinking you really like this area and figure out, no, this is really not for me. And that's a great thing to discover before you've committed to, a 5-year doctoral program in that field. So summer research programs are a great way to explore different areas and figure out what works for you. And then, of course, finally, they're great opportunities to travel, to meet new people and make new friends and just have fun and get paid while you're doing all that. The next kind of component is how should you apply? And we have several handouts that are pretty nice and helpful about how to apply. I want to show you one of them right now because it has kind of a nice timeline. So this is our kind of summer research overview handout. And on page 2, you'll see a really nice kind of checklist timeline for the application process. And you'll see that kind of in an ideal world, you may have started this application process in summer and early fall. But it certainly isn't too late to start now if you have not started now. Most deadlines are in early January, but some programs, for example, the NASA internships, don't have deadlines until late February or early March. If you're just getting started right now, you know, one of the things that you might want to think about is talking to your potential recommenders who will be writing letters of recommendation now, and kind of giving them a heads up that you're hoping that they'll be able to write a letter because people are going to be headed out for Christmas break here pretty soon. But you definitely have time, and I encourage you to check out this timeline. We'll be sending you links to all these resources by email so that you can explore them further. We also have some other resources related to a few different topics that come up often as students are applying. One of them is discussing the importance of summer research with your family. So this handout, again, you can get to it by clicking on the little icon. It's helpful because sometimes it can be a little bit challenging to explain to your family why you really want to leave home for the summer and why the summer research experience is really kind of critical for your education and your career plans. We also have some tips on essays and personal statements, and I encourage you to check them out and also make use of your campus writing center, your peers, and your faculty mentors as you're reviewing and finalizing your essays. And then finally, I know that letters of recommendation are often a little bit intimidating, perhaps. We have a nice handout on that, and you know, one thing I want to say is especially if you're at a large school with large class sizes, you may be a little bit challenged in developing kind of close relationships with faculty where you feel comfortable going and asking for a letter of recommendation. One of the best ways that you can build relationships with potential letter writers is to start attending office hours. So you'd be surprised how many faculty, you know, never get students coming to their office hours. And office hours, you know, you can go even if you don't have a question about course content. You can go to office hours and talk about, you know, just general topics. What do you want to do in the future? Anything from, you know, what should you take for next year's courses? Where should you start looking for summer research? Ideas about graduate school, all those things. You can ask about what you should do to prepare yourself if you're interested in a certain kind of career field. Ask, for instance, about what type of professional associations you should think about joining or events you think they think you should be attending. So these are all ways to start kind of building some conversations and really some mentoring relationships with faculty. But when you're ready to ask for that letter of recommendation, you can bring your resume. You can bring a short summary of the work you've done with that faculty member, because remember, they're busy, they have lots of students. They usually appreciate a little reminder of the interactions they've had with you, even if you know they know you fairly well. And bring a list of the programs that you want to apply to. Let them know why you're applying, what you hope to gain from the program, and make sure they have, you know, of course, all the deadlines and pertinent information in front of them. And once you have requested that letter, make sure you remember to follow up and make sure, you know, that it's been received. So before I pass it off to our guest speakers, I want to give you a tour of our website because it's a great resource. It's called pathwaystoscience.org. And there are a few things that I want to highlight here. One is our program search. We have about 1,500 programs in our database for all levels and all disciplines. You can search, you can do a general search and you can do an advanced search. So I'm going to do kind of a general search here for undergraduates in biology. And you'll see that I got a ton of results. This would include undergraduate summer research as well as undergraduate scholarships and any other undergraduate focused programs. I'll do an example of our advanced search as well, where you can kind of refine things a little bit more. So again, I'll do undergraduates. And I know sometimes citizenship is a question mark. If anyone is non-U.S. citizen, sometimes it's a little bit harder to find programs. So I'll select that as an example. And let's see what else. And we'll look specifically for a summer research opportunity. So I'm going to click search. And so that came up with 68 different programs. So you can see there are lots of options here, and you might want to search several different ways, different keywords, different disciplines, different eligibility requirements. But this is a great resource for finding programs. The other thing I want to highlight here is we have this resource library where we have a toolbox that has all of our handouts in one place. So all the handouts that I've shown you today and others that I haven't shown you today. There's a whole section on summer research where you can read about the benefits. The applying the summer research experiences is the one with the checklist that I showed you. Discussing summer research with your family. We also have, if you're looking ahead to graduate school, lots of tips on applying to graduate school. So this website is a good resource for you, and I encourage you to use it when you can. So at this point, I want to pass things over to our first guest presenter, who is Abby Thompson. She's the coordinator of the SciMed Graduate Research Scholars Program at the University of Wisconsin-Madison.
Sounds great. Thank you, Liv. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Abby Thompson, joining you from UW, University of Wisconsin-Madison. I work with a fellowship program for underrepresented graduate students. So I have a lot of opportunity to interact with students applying to graduate school, applying to summer research opportunities. And I've been asked to share a little bit about going a little bit more in depth on some of the topics that Liv mentioned in the earlier part of the presentation today. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about the actual process of applying and some tips and things to consider as you're approaching that process or going through that process. So hopefully you are able to take a look at a few slides in front of you as a reference point as I'm sharing some ideas with you. So Liv was demonstrating the search function on the website for looking for summer research opportunities, which is a fantastic tool and resource. And among, the things that you will filter for to consider are, the type of research that you want to do. So when you're looking at a program and applying to a summer research program, you want to think about your criteria and also, the program's criteria. So what type of research will you be doing? So that general search that Liv did pulled up quite a few results when she just highlighted biology. And, maybe you are exploring different areas of biology, and it would be helpful to kind of take a broad approach in researching summer research programs, or perhaps you're more specified and you're looking only for opportunities in microbiology, for example. So that's definitely something to consider because there are sort of various scales in terms of what type of, research experience you want to have, more broadly in the biosciences or more targeted. Location perhaps is of consideration to you, and most of the programs that I'm aware of, you are staying on site at the institution, but that's something to be aware of if you have some geographical constraints to, take into consideration when you're researching summer research opportunities. Cost and compensation. Most of these programs compensate well enough that you wouldn't need to be thinking of, an additional job over the summer. For a lot of students, the summer income is really important for preparing them for, the upcoming academic year in terms of financial resources. So it's great that these programs are designed that you should be able to, earn some money or, save some money along the way. The duration, typically these start end of May, though there may be some variation end of May, early June, till about mid-August. So keep that in mind if you have some time points that are not flexible. Eligibility, again, Liv touched on sort of if programs are for U.S. citizens only or targeted for. I would pay particular attention to that because you don't want to spend a lot of time investigating in a program and applying to a program to find out that you probably weren't, the target or even eligible for the program. And then also competitiveness. There are programs that are highly competitive, and then there are programs that are less so. So that's something to kind of keep in mind. And in general, I think programs that are newer probably do not have as large of an applicant base. So that might be something to consider. If a program's newer, might not be as competitive and more opportunity there. And I think programs that are generally in bigger cities or attractive geographic locations likely get a higher applicant pool as well. So in terms of a strategy, think about your criteria for applying and think about the program's criteria, what you're looking for. Try and identify a short list of programs, what's manageable to you. Obviously, the Pathway to Science website is a great resource for querying opportunities, and try to, come up with maybe 6 or so programs that, kind of rise to the top in terms of your interest. And talk to your current mentors and peers and see where people have been and what experiences they've had. And use that as sort of a guiding tool as well to learn about additional opportunities. Okay, I think I'm ready for the next slide, please. And apply to multiple programs. As I kind of mentioned already, programs can be really competitive, and you want to make sure that you will have an opportunity to do summer research. So instead of putting all of your eggs in one basket and applying to one program and having your heart set on that opportunity panning out, try to sort of apply to several. Maybe you apply to a couple that appear to be highly competitive and a few less so, to just make for the most opportunity to be able to be involved in a summer research program. I think one of the really big tips that I can suggest to you all is getting organized around tracking your applications. So once you've come up with that short list of institutions or programs that you would like to apply to, create a spreadsheet. It can be quite simple with just various headings of important information. Program name, is the opportunity paid and unpaid? Hopefully these are all paid. Location, deadlines, dates you submitted, references, following up. That will help you keep track of all of these different programs and their different deadlines, et cetera. That will be a really helpful document, and I would just encourage you to create that now if you're just starting your search, or if you've already started your search, create it and fill it in with the information that you've already gathered. It will be a really helpful way to stay on top of all these various steps along the way. Okay, next slide. The components of the summer research application. So in general, if you have a resume or CV, that will likely be requested for the program. A cover letter or statement of purpose. I have seen different variations of how these summer research programs might, the questions they might ask for a personal statement, or they might give a few essay prompts. But one thing to really keep in mind is don't just describe what you've done, describe how you did it. So not that I did this experiment. Well, how did you approach that experiment? Describe your skills and qualifications that would make you a good fit for a summer research opportunity. And really emphasize why is this experience important to you? And make sure that that's very clear about why you really want this experience and how it's going to help you moving forward through your academic career and beyond. Coursework and grades are also considered, and you'll be asked to submit a transcript. And again, as we're approaching sort of a winter break, it might be wise to try and figure out that process sooner or later. There can be a lot of lags in time, and offices closed, et cetera, and it would be a shame to not have what you needed because you couldn't access it. So definitely look into that if you haven't yet about the process of obtaining transcripts for these applications. And then a few notes on references. I think Liv's suggestion about going to office hours is a really helpful suggestion. It can be really challenging, particularly at big institutions, to have meaningful interactions with faculty. One thing I share with students is make sure each semester you talk to the faculty member or the instructor at least 1 or 2 times. Go up after class, ask a question, go to office hours, because it very easily could not happen if you don't initiate it. So you really need to build in those opportunities to try and make good connections. So think about, who would be your people you could ask for a letter of recommendation, and think about how you would like to be described in that letter, and try to think about who could describe you well in that manner. Make it very easy for them. Be very clear about where you're applying, what the deadlines are. You may also, you may want to say, I plan to have everything in 1 week early, just to give that grace period. So then, faculty often have a lot on their plate. And so if you, follow up at that 1 week point, they might say, oh, yes, I'm getting that together, and it will all be in on time versus at the final hour being stressed about it not being submitted. So try to make it easy for them again and be very clear and provide your application materials for them to review so they can write the strongest recommendation possible. And I think it's helpful to also ask them, can you write me a strong letter of reference? It gives people an opportunity, if they feel that they really don't know you very well or maybe couldn't give you the best recommendation, to maybe decline that. And actually that's really a favor to you. If somebody can't write you a strong, compelling letter, you're better off trying to find somebody else who could write a stronger letter. So phrasing it as, could you write me a strong letter of recommendation for this opportunity or this program is kind of a nice way to phrase it to make sure that you're going to be putting your best foot forward. Okay, next slide. And then some final tips. Read the program description really carefully. Make sure that you're answering the questions that they ask. I know this seems very basic, but when you're doing many of them, it can easily get confusing about who is asking for what, and you know, making sure that your responses and you have all of the components for each of the applications. If it's possible, I think it's helpful to print out a hard copy of the application. I know that might not always be possible, but then it helps you sort of process what you're going to need and give you a little bit of time to think about how to construct that application. So I'd recommend doing that if that's an option. And don't procrastinate. Give yourself time to make sure that you've done it as well and as complete as you possibly can. And review your application materials prior to submitting. And if it's possible, definitely have other people take a look too. Other people read your personal statements, your essay responses to the questions in the application. As much feedback as you can get will be helpful in that regard. And one other quick tip that I wanted to mention, a lot of the letters of references now are submitted electronically, and they get a notice of a link or a place to submit or upload the letter of recommendation. It's probably really helpful to know when those letters of reference prompts or notifications will come through, because sometimes it doesn't happen until after you hit the submit button. So if you're waiting till like one day before the deadline to submit, your letters of reference folks might not get the opportunity to upload until that point in time as well. So that's another thing to kind of be aware of in the process of how that might work for each of the applications that you are putting together. So I think that concludes kind of my piece, and hopefully if you have some questions, we'll have a chance to talk with you a little bit more about that towards the end of this session.
Great. Thanks, Abby. Yeah, if anyone has questions as they go along, feel free to type them in the chat box, and we'll queue them up. But we'll move on to our next presenter, who is Edgar Pena, who is a graduate student at the University of Minnesota.
Oh, thanks, Liv. That's a big-size picture. So yeah, like Liv said, hi, my name is Edgar Pena. I'm a third-year PhD student at University of Minnesota in biomedical engineering. And I'm originally from Los Angeles. I did my undergrad at UC Irvine in electrical and biomedical engineering. And just the background on my research, I work on electrical brain stimulation technology for treating movement disorders such as Parkinson's disease. So before going into the actual summer research experience that I had, I just wanted to briefly mention the application process that I went through. When I was applying, I was a sophomore, so it was at the end of, or toward the middle / end of my sophomore year, and I had been doing research in a lab for about a year by that point. So I kind of knew I really should be doing a summer experience if I wanted to strengthen my application for graduate school. So I started applying, and the program that I ended up getting into is called UC Leads, and that's a UC-specific program that lasts 2 years. So it's 2 summer programs, but you apply for it all at once. And the first summer, you do research at your home institution. In my case, it was at UC Irvine. And the second summer, you do research at a different UC, and I chose UC Davis. So I'm going to mainly talk about my experience at UC Davis, just because both were kind of similar in the benefits that they gave me, but UC Davis, it was a different campus, so there's more, it encompasses more things that I want to discuss. So before moving from that, one of the challenges that I ran into when I was applying for summer research programs is I applied kind of late. So the recommendations that Abby and Liv were giving are spot on. So I applied, I think, maybe in the February timeframe, or I forget what month it was, but by that time I only had a couple of weeks left for only some research programs that were available. So I actually applied to one other program at University of Arizona, and because it was kind of last minute, I didn't get in because it was a rough draft, and I was stressing about getting my letter of recommendation from my research mentor because it was only 2 weeks, and yeah, so definitely start early. I'd say at least a month in advance, at least, so you can get your letters in. But things ended up working out, and the way they did. So as far as the research experience goes, before my summer at UC Davis, like just before the months leading up to it, I needed to find a research mentor at UC Davis. So I emailed several professors that were suggested by my research mentor at my local institution. And one of them replied, and her name is Dr. Catherine Ferreira. And she does work on cancer imaging, which I thought was very interesting because the work I had been doing as an undergrad had to do with biomedical imaging. Also, it was with MRI, or magnetic resonance imaging. So I was very interested in the work she did. And she agreed to take me on. And once I arrived to campus, everything was kind of set up for me in terms of like arrangements, like living arrangements. The program had housing, meals, free meals, and in my case at least, and a stipend that I would get at the end of the program. And the details of that, as Abby and Liv have described, the details kind of vary from program to program. But it definitely covered me for the summer. I didn't have to like do anything other than focus on research, and that was the expectation. I was expected to be in lab full time, and also comply or like fulfill the requirements of the program in addition to that. And the program had these awesome resources such as workshops on how to apply to grad school, and workshops on actually drafting and revising my own personal statement and statement of purpose. So just as what you've heard so far, it's all a very good experience. Now for the actual experience itself. So I loved the experience at UC Davis that summer, and I think the major benefits are both in terms of grad application, but also just sort of beyond that. There are some personal benefits. So in terms of the graduate application, I think the most important thing that I gained from it is a letter of recommendation. So Dr. Ferreira got to know me through the research experience, and she was able to give me, she's a big name in her field, so she was able to give me a strong research letter, which is super important to get. I already had one from my home institution, so this was my second letter, which is essential because grad schools typically ask for 3 letters of recommendation. The other thing is I learned a lot of new techniques in the lab. For me, it was like image processing, and I learned about cancer imaging. This was very valuable for me because it really helped me shape what sort of research I wanted to do as a scholar going into graduate school. So this sort of additional thought really came in handy when I was trying to describe my interest in the graduate school applications, the statement of purpose and personal statement. And then the last major grad school application related benefit is that it gave me a head start on my graduate applications. Coming out of the summer research program, I had my statement of purpose drafted. Like it was like drafted 3, and my personal statement was also drafted. And these 2 documents became the basis for all my graduate school applications. And I applied to 10 schools, so it was really helpful to have that foundation already set. It also actually became the basis for my fellowship applications, even as recently as last year, when I was still applying for fellowships. I was using these documents, the core of these documents, as my basis for the application. So it was a really good resource that the program offered. So that was related to graduate school. Oh, and yes, I got a stipend, so I got to make a little bit of money. You know, it wasn't that much money, but it's for undergrad, it's pretty good. So as far as the more personal side of it, I enjoyed the experience because I got to meet a lot of really cool people. For instance, so some of the grad students that I met there, I still know. So one guy, his name is Jiro Kusunose, and I still keep in touch with him. He was a grad student at UC Davis. Now he's a postdoc at Vanderbilt. And my postdoc mentor at UC Davis, his name was Charles Caskey. He is now a professor at Vanderbilt. And actually, so Charles is Jiro's PI, which is pretty neat that sort of relationship carried on from UC Davis over to Vanderbilt. I also met a lot of friends who are more of my peers in the program, and we still keep in touch, and we got to hang out every so often during the program, and we even we took like a day trip to San Francisco since it was somewhat close by, and a lot of nice memories from that. And I think the final piece is getting the chance to travel to a different location, at least for the UC Davis trip. So I'm originally from Los Angeles, and I did my undergrad in Southern California. So going up to Northern California for a summer was great because it was like a totally new world for me. Now it's only 6 hours apart, and it's in the same state, so it might seem like it shouldn't be that big of a difference, but for me at the time it was quite different, particularly since Davis is a slightly more rural, and I was from downtown LA, so it's a kind of a shock, a positive shock. In retrospect, now that I'm at University of Minnesota and I've gotten to travel a lot more, that difference is not as significant, but that's okay, because at the time I was mesmerized. So yeah, that was the gist of my summer research experience, and I guess the takeaway is I would highly recommend it for any undergrad interested in going to grad school. It's a great benefit for your application and for your personal development. And I'm happy to take any questions during the Q&A session.